Hey there, you're listening to the Not So Breakfast Show with Sasha and Ish. Hey there, welcome to this special edition of the Not So Breakfast Show, and I love the interviews that we do because we get to bring inspirational stories and inspirational people to you. Just be aware that themes in this podcast do talk about the loss of family members, and if you do find this triggering, please reach out to someone and talk to them. Now, with that being said, that's the show. Let's get it. Alright, welcome to the Not So Breakfast Show today, and this is one where we get to interview Arthur Gerards, a long-time friend of the show. And we are excited to have him on because he's a bit of an inspiration. He's got a great story and we're going to explore that today. But before we get to Arthur, I feel it's only right to have a wee chat to Sasha. Sasha, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing so good. I'm so excited to be talking to Arthur today. So Arthur and I go way back. As he'll explain, he's from the Netherlands and I met him first overseas. And then the coolest thing happened is he came to New Zealand and I spent a bit of time with him when he was here. And so I don't want to ruin the story, but just to say it's going to be a treat for us all today to have Arthur.
Yeah, and it's nice having someone on the show with a nice accent for a change. Because I don't know, although New Zealand was voted sexiest accent in the world, I must admit, like, that is grasping at straws because Arthur sounds a lot sexier than we do.
I think so too.
Morning, Arthur. How are you?
I'm good, and I'm very curious about my accent.
Well, we're saying good morning because we're morning, but you're evening.
Evening. It's complete evening. Very dark here, and with you, it's sunny and bright. And you know what's funny, by the way? Spotify has this like the recap, the yearly recap. So the favorite podcast that I've listened to was, of course, the Not So Breakfast Show. You know how many hours I listened to you guys? What do you think?
How many?
1,200. Oh no, 1,200 minutes. Sorry, I listened all the episodes.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, I feel like I've probably listened to it 4 times more than that because I edited also.
For you.
And then I was out for a walk the other day and I thought, what should I listen to? And I listened to our own podcast. I don't know.
Oh, Ash, you and I are so the same. Sometimes when I'm feeling a little bit anxious or I'm a little bit tired or I just want to self-soothe, people say, oh, how do you relax? And I'm like, I just listen to my own podcast.
Oh, brilliant. We're all in different levels of lockdown at the moment, aren't we? We've just been sort of talking about that. Auckland, where I am, we're just about to come out to some business as usual normality. Arthur, I think you're in a night lockdown?
Yeah, so we have to close everything from 5 o'clock. So, and I was also very funny. You guys were talking about how testing and all these things. And for me, it felt like it was some things are quite new to you while we are doing that already for like a year. So it's so funny how all these things are different in the world and especially in New Zealand. But we had like lots of people vaccinated and still numbers are going up. And now you have all these people that are against it. Like it's a long story. So we have an evening lockdown. Gyms can't open and after 5, so they close down at 5 p.m., which is also fine. And I work at a project where we film classes, so we do that all in the evening. So
nice.
Yeah, it's not bad at all. And I think for lots of people, it's good to have some free evenings as well.
Yeah.
Arthur, can you tell us whereabouts specifically in the Netherlands are you at the moment?
Well, I'm at the most sexy city with the sexy accents, and that's Amsterdam.
Aha!
And you know what's funny with Amsterdam? When you are traveling abroad and you always say, I'm from Amsterdam, people go, okay. Like they're really, but you see in their eyes, they're thinking, hookers and drugs. And that's actually only for the tourists. Because if you live here, like I never come to the red light district and you smell like, how do you call that? Like weed or pot or anything. Mm-hmm. You smell that on the streets because of these shops, but you never, like the rarity that people do that themselves. Like you have these parties where people do it, but I think there's a stigma maybe on the city. I'm not sure what you guys were thinking, but.
Well, I've been to Amsterdam and I lost my video camera, my wallet and all my passports and my virginity. All of that, but I left it in a bag in one of the public toilets and like, I
Oh,
got to another shop and I thought, oh, that's it. But I went back, and the lady who was looking after the toilets was holding on to all of it for me. I gave her a massive tip because I thought that's gone, but that was passports money, everything. So I love Amsterdam.
oh, wow, nice.
Yeah, that was a good time.
Yeah, it's a nice city.
Hey, but why don't you give us a little bit of background into sort of how you got into fitness, and you also do magic.
Yeah, I was writing down some things like how to talk about my background. And then I realized that as a small kid, I had always the urge to perform and stand in front of people. So as a small kid, like 5, 6, or 7 years, I wanted to go into the circus. And then that later evolved around about like when I was 12 into like magic. I walked into a magic shop and someone explained me a trick or showed me a trick. And then I bought the trick, and then that's how it all started. And then I did my first like small show with my neighbors. There was a child who had a birthday party, and I performed. And my whole youth, I was performing almost all the weekends. Sometimes I had like triple gigs, so one in the at 12 o'clock, one at 3 o'clock, one at 6 o'clock. And what's nice is that I didn't had an assistant because I did everything myself. But there was one person who helped me always, and that was my mother. She was always carrying around me, and I was always also scared of pigeons, like the birds. Yeah. So what would happen? I would like one would appear out of like a burning cage, and but I was too scared to grab the pigeon. So she would grab the pigeon and walk around. We even had one gig. Though this is very, I'm not sure. I can't tell. I think there was one gig where the pigeon flew away, but it was like in a very big library with glass windows. So the pigeon was flying and thought it was flying outside, but it flew into the window, and it was like you had this like, poof, and then it fell down into the floor. Everyone was like, oh, and that's the story.
That's fantastic.
No animals were harmed in the
Never.
I mean, a pigeon died, but I mean, other than that, the magic was amazing.
Well, I had a rabbit that I used for a long time. He had a very, very successful career, and he just died because he was like old. But yeah, so yeah, I did all these things, and then I got into musical theater, and I liked that, and I did a study musical theater. And actually, during that study, one of the teachers told me you should go into fitness because you need to get strong to lift ladies. And then I went into fitness, and I suddenly slowly got in touch with group fitness because people there was like, well, we need a Zumba instructor. You can dance. Can you teach the class? And I did it for a while, and I could do it, but I hated it because it was so much practice with like making the class and stuff. And then at the end,
So hard.
well, yeah, and that's the nice thing about teaching full Les Mills because that's what I do as well. You get
And no pigeons.
no pigeons, no, no, yeah. Oh, poor pigeon. They even didn't have a name because once you have 2 pigeons, you have 20 because they multiply so fast. Not because of the magic, but because of other stuff we shouldn't tell because people are listening to this after 9 o'clock, maybe. So then I got into sports, and actually the theater career faded away a little bit because all the insecurity was giving me a lot of stress and lots of unhappiness. And the sport was nice, and teaching classes gave me lots of satisfaction. And that became like a full-time job. I teach like 10 classes a week, and I work 20 hours at a gym doing something else than teaching.
Part of when I first met you, we were at a Les Mills conference, and there was a talent quest. And as part of the talent quest, you did the most amazing magic show that I suppose combines all those things that you were talking about. We were at a fitness environment, but all that stagecraft, and I mean the audience were just completely blown away by the way that it wasn't just that you did a trick; it was the entire kind of show and performance around it was just outstanding.
Yeah, and it was also because I'm not sure if everyone, like the people that listen to this are probably not all from Les Mills. So in Les Mills, we have these ways of teaching, like a little vocabulary that if you're a teacher. So I adapted my script a little bit to that. So I performed the trick. I made like some funny jokes. Well, I think people found them funny because they laughed with it. And on that way, they were surprised because they were like, oh my God, a magician. And then someone who makes like jokes. And yeah, it was just really nice. The bad thing was that I didn't win. There was a singer. She won. And the next year I performed again. that year I didn't make them only laugh, but I made them laugh and cry, and then I won the
Yeah,
prize.
there we go. There we go.
Yeah, there we
But
go.
you weren't there then. You weren't there then. That was sad. It was the worst summit ever, without such.
So you've had quite an amazing journey lately because you've completed an Ironman, and that's kind of part of what we're going to be talking about today with your project. But what kind of drove you to do such an extreme event? Because for those of you that have never done an Ironman before, that's not going for a walk, for half an hour and maybe going to the gym a couple of times a week. That's full-on commitment, isn't it?
Yeah, it's for people that don't know, it's 3.8 kilometer swim, 180 kilometer of biking, and a marathon running. That's 42 kilometers, 0.2. And actually, the nice thing is that I completed the first one in New Zealand. Sasha was there to support me. That was incredible. That gave me like a rocket under my bike. And actually, I did that one because after doing theater for so long, I felt and not doing any work with that directly, I felt there was a voice in me who always said, "Arthur, you're not good enough. What you're doing doesn't relate to your education, and this is bad." That was that devil voice, and there was always a good voice as well. But I thought, like, I'm gonna beat that devil voice. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna travel to the other side of the world, drive in a camper all by my own for 5 weeks, train, put my race bike in the back, complete the race, and if I complete that, I can never ever say to myself that I can't do anything or I'm whatever. And a friend told me before, like, you don't need the race to do that. And actually, the funny thing is, like, halfway through the journey, I already felt the answer. And yeah, I really have a feeling that I have had it before and then after Arthur.
So during that time when you were away and you're training, like, what sort of things did you learn about yourself?
I actually learned that everything is okay. So sometimes we stress about so many things, and also traveling alone abroad in a camper in a country that you don't know. Now, New Zealand is not it's a country where you can easily travel alone, like nothing harmful really happens. Because the first few days I was like very anxious, but getting over that, it just learns you, like, wherever you are on the planet, you will be fine, and you get in touch so much with yourself. And also what I learned with the second race, because I did a race this year as well. If you're riding the bike for 5 hours, like, you don't have the fucking TikTok or Instagram or Facebook to distract you. You really are just with yourself on the bike, with the wind, with the rain, with anything, and you are forced to think about life or think about yourself. And for me, it was real. I think meditation is always so connected with yoga or with things that are very like sitting on it. Like, but for me, it was a kind of meditation.
I love what you're saying because I've noticed within myself, I'm losing the ability to be alone with myself. So even now, if I go, oh, I've got a bit of time to myself, what I mean is I've got a bit of time to myself so I can finally play those games on my phone that I love so much. Or I've got some time to myself so I can finally update my Facebook. And I've really been reflecting on how little time I spend by myself with myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I love what you're talking about, that meditative quality of being on the bike or exercising or walking in nature or whatever. And I think it's a challenge to us all to reflect on the way that we run from that alone time.
We'll be right back.
If there was one skill that could double your income, advance your career, and increase your ability to influence, it is the skill of presenting. Whether it's on stage, in the boardroom, or at a job interview, the 30-Minute Presenter program will help take you to the next level. So check out our Instagram page, click the link in the bio, and get started on the 30-Minute Presenter program.
Yeah, and also I think we humans are not designed like in all these things on a phone. They don't make you really happy, or they don't give you real satisfaction. They're fun, but after half an hour, you're like, what did I just do with my time? You think you get satisfaction from it, but you don't. You actually get more satisfaction from walking out and listening to a podcast, or just walking out and listening to the sound of nature. I trapped myself into it as well, that you land on the sofa, you just grab your phone and there's 2 hours gone. But being aware of that, I think, is step one, because now you have the younger generation. You both have young kids, and you really need to pull them away from the phone because they are not capable of realizing that what they're doing is like, bad is a big word, but I think you also develop yourself when you have this own me time. Yeah.
So have you always had that discipline to, hop on a bike and just go for hours or go for a run, or is that something that you've kind of learnt to enjoy over time?
I learned to enjoy over time because I wasn't very sporty when I was young. And actually, I think one podcast, Sasha said that she's lazy and she doesn't like to work out. I feel the same.
Was that
And
just
I
one
hate-
podcast? I think that's every podcast.
No.
Yeah.
And I remember this afternoon I was working at the gym where I work, where we teach cycling classes, and in the afternoon we play. There's no instructor, but there's a video, like a documentary, and this time it was Lance Armstrong, documentary about him, and someone said he must be so fit, and I was like, and he must be working out all the time, and I said, well, he must also have these days where he's on the sofa and he doesn't want to go out and he just doesn't. And then that guy said, no, he goes work out all the time. And sometimes people say to me, oh, you're so fit, you go work out every day, and you're always like having the energy to work out. No, if I wake up at 8 o'clock in the morning, I hope that I'm on my bike at 12 o'clock. But once you're there, it's good, and you're happy that you did it. And I feel always much reborn. Also because if you work out, you get these endorphins and everything. So yeah.
And I think that's something that people often don't get to experience. So they go out for a run, they go out for a bike, they try some exercise, and they go, oh man, that was hard, I didn't enjoy it. But really what it is they just suck at exercise because they haven't kind of developed that tolerance for it. So those endorphins often don't hit them. But like what you're saying is if you stick at it, there is an endorphin hit, that kind of motivation that comes and that feeling that comes, and you can get to that space, but it takes a bit of time, it takes a bit of effort, and you've kind of got to find your reason, don't you? You've got to find your reason to do that as well.
Yeah, and I think there is a sport for anyone. Like sometimes you have people coming to a body attack class, or a body pump class, and they don't like it because they're not good in choreography or whatever. And then they say, sporting is nothing for me. But there are so many other things to do. So that's what I always encourage to people. Like, I'm not going to shout at you if you're not come to my class next time. Find something that you think makes you happy, and find your little piece of meditation in there. And indeed, running for a lot of people they don't like that, but there's lots of other things to do.
That's why I love talking about movement.
Yeah.
How do you move your body? Is it dancing? Is it yoga? Is it stretching? Is it walking? Is it playing tennis? Is it lifting weights? Is it and I know the science around how we need a mix of all that stuff, and that's important. But the starting point is always, how do you feel when you move? And find something where you're moving that you love.
Yeah.
And if that's dancing, then do that.
So I know you've had a lot going on over the last few months, and I was just wondering if you could maybe tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I have a friend of mine who I spoke to yesterday. We have something in common, because I think one of the reasons why we got in touch maybe and why I got into the podcast is because the last Ironman that I didn't do that just to do a race. But in the beginning of this year, my mom passed away, and she was very healthy. She was running. You wouldn't say that she would get sick, and she was very confused. And then we brought her to the hospital, and within 3 weeks in the hospital, her condition faded away, and they found that she had cancer. And she was going to go to a closed department because of COVID, so only my father would be able to be with her. And I stayed over with her for the night, and we made a promise. And I said to her, do you remember that I have this race coming up? And she was like, yeah, it's the Ironman in Hamburg. And then I said, yeah, but this time it's very special. And she said, yes, it's very special. And I asked, why is it so special? And she said, because I'm sick. And what was so emotional about that for me is, in those 3 weeks, she was very sick. She was very confused. We couldn't have a normal conversation because her focus was gone. If we would look back to the videos, at that moment, you didn't realize that because you slowly fade into that process. But it was the first time for her that she said it. And actually, I always kept it bright, and I played music in the room, and she liked the Van Gogh museum. So I brought paintings into because the hospital for any one of us is confusing because it's a white room. There are people with white things. And even if you have like something in your mind that's already confusing you. So she said that she was sick, and I was like, we're going to fight for it. And we're going to try to be there together at the day of the race. And she said, yes, fine. And after that moment, her condition actually got even worse, and she passed away 4 weeks later. And then I had the choice to say like, oh, guys, well, I should have done this race together with my mother, but she passed away, and like I can't do this because it will be too emotional. So leave it, fuck it. This year was like a big mess already, so I'm gonna be in bed the whole day and don't do anything. But then I read a book of Edith Eger, and it's called The Gift. And she survived the Auschwitz, and her whole family, they arrived. And the whole family was like standing in a queue line, and she as well. And then one one German officer said, you come here to this queue line, you will see your family later. And 2 hours ago, she was like, where is my mom? And then the person that she was talking to said, do you see that smoke over there? That's your mother. And a few days later, that same officer who sent her family into death asked, could you dance for us? Because we heard you're a great dancer. And then she was like, I can't say no because it's against my principles. And then I will be the next one. But I don't have an influence on what's happening to me, but I do have an influence on how I react to it. So she was like, I'm going to dance. I'm going to close my eyes and imagine that I'm there at the Bolshoi Ballet and dancing the stars. And she survived, and later on she became a psychologist, and she learned people. And that's what I really opened my eyes. Like, you don't have an influence on what's happening to you, but you do have an influence on how you react on it. And I didn't have an influence that my mom got sick and passed away. Otherwise she would still have been here if I had an influence on that. The choice to me was how to react on that. I can sit in bed, cry the whole day and don't do anything and ruin my life. Or I can say, I'm going to do it, but this time I'm going to do it even faster, and I'm going to do it for her and with her in spirit. And so the bike sessions and the swim sessions and the runs became all like a whole like meditative, like I got in touch with me and in touch with her, and I learned so much about myself. And then, I did the race, and it went beyond expectations. In New Zealand, I did it in 11 hours and 40 minutes, and now I did it in 9 hours and 55 minutes. So that's like more than 1.5 hours faster. And that's, to me, was such an eye opener, because I also have people that I know that with grief or anything, they go like, okay, now we have to wear black for like 6 weeks, and I can't eat this, and it's like really like going into this agony, and like, oh, it's all so sad. And of course, it's sad, and I cried a lot. But it's in your own hands how you react on that. And it feels like it's very tough and very strange to say that. And I remember that last summer that she was still alive. I thought, oh, my mom is now like 63, and in 20 years she will be 83. Then probably she will pass away maybe then. Oh, I can't imagine in 20 years what I have to cope with, not knowing what was in front of me. But that's also something I wanted to share to all people that are listening, or to anyone in the world. Like, you will survive and you will go through. And I'm not saying it will be easy, but the easy is never good and the good is never easy. And just trust on that everything will get better. And in this most difficult times, you will be sad and you think, I will never smile again, but you will.
It's so beautiful hearing you talk about your mum and how she's with you as you are doing that training, and that process of where you're spending time with yourself, and that's also a process of spending time with her. And I love what you're saying about how last year you're thinking about, at some point I'm going to lose my mum, and it might be in 20 years' time, and then you've had to face that so much earlier than you had expected and intended. And I know for people who have the gift of a close relationship with their parent, and I have that. I speak to my mum 3 or 4 times every day, and so I can't imagine a world where she's not in it. But what fascinates me is this whole kind of circle of life and cycle of life. And if I just share this one story from my dad that has just stayed with me. I remember when he was quite old, like maybe in his 60s, and he was talking about his own mother, and she had passed a few years earlier, and he choked up as he was telling me, because he said, the hardest thing is that I just can't pick up the phone and ring her anymore. And this is a man in his 60s grieving his mother because he just can't ring her. And it's this inevitability for us all that we face the loss of people who matter to us, and how we respond in the face of that grief. And it's not a competition, right? It's not a cheerfulness competition. So we can listen to your story, and there'll be people listening who will be like, oh, that's amazing that he could do that, but he's probably a really positive person and I'm not that. And I think everyone grieves differently, but what you've given us an example of is that power of the choice in the moment, that even if you are feeling sad, despite feeling sad, despite wanting to just go back under the covers, you are better served by getting up. And and in many respects, you honor your mother in that way, right? You honor her by continuing on, because you know that the thing she most wants for you is for you to thrive, is for you to be making the moment of each breath you have now that she no longer has.
Mm-hmm.
And so kudos to you. Good on you.
I love that as well, that it's okay to be sad, and you won't always feel that way. Because I think that's an important message for people. When you go through hard times, it just feels so heavy. And so my wife, Jo, she lost her mum about 4 weeks ago. And again, and it's hard enough with the loss. Then you compound on the situation of COVID and the complexities around that. And, it just feels sometimes like it's all consuming, but like you said, it's okay that things are heavy. It's okay that things are sad. It's okay that the time right now is hard, and you will go through hard things again in your life as well. But again, it's around a choice. It's around let me work through this and find my way to work through this and find my meaning that I'm going to turn this into, because that's what you've done. You've really gone through some heavy stuff, but you've used it in a way that's increased your ability to perform, and you're doing that as a way to honor your mum. And she would have been so proud of you when you crossed that finish line. It just would have been, just an amazing thing. So yeah, I just find it so inspirational hearing those kind of stories.
And maybe there's a cultural difference too, because the stereotype is that the Asian mother would have said to you, you shaved that much off your time? Why were you going so slow in Taupo? Why in New Zealand did you go so slow when you are obviously so much faster?
New bike. No.
There was a pigeon behind him.
Yeah, there we go.
No. But what is really very interesting, what Sasha said, like, I can't imagine a world without my mother. And I remember like the first period after it happened, like lots of people talk about it. That's something strange as well. No one talks about it now anymore, but there's always like next to me, there is like a table with like pictures and there's a candle lighting. I'm always busy with it, but always like most of the time. But in the beginning, people are talking a lot about it, and they say, oh, I can't imagine how it must be. And I was like, but I'm not asking you to imagine how it's be. And also for me, I couldn't imagine as well, but you don't have to imagine, because whenever it happens, it happens. And the strangest thing of everything was, or strangest, the most beautiful thing that happened was when my mom passed away. She always wanted to go to a natural, like a forest cemetery. That's the only wish she had, and she wished that I would lead the service. And that was the only thing. But my brother and my father and I, we made it such a memorable, such a special day, and everything fell on its place, and nothing was prepared. You have like years and years to prepare a wedding, which people say it's the most beautiful day of their life or the most important day of their life. But some people do that day 3 times with 3 different people. And a funeral, it happens once.
So judgy.
Yeah, the Dutch. No. But if you pass away, like a funeral happens once, and you have a week, maybe less than a week to prepare it. But then the most beautiful thing is that also then everything will be all right. How cheesy it sounds, but everything falls on its place. So for the people that say like I can't imagine a world, don't, just enjoy that the people are there with you, and at the moment when it will happen, and then everything will fall in its place. And yeah, just trust on that.
I love that expression that says, everything will be all right in the end. And if everything's not all right, it means you're not at the end yet.
Yeah.
And I love that because it promises the hope. And I've been speaking in a couple of different settings lately, mainly to business groups who are just really tired. Everybody is exhausted, whether they've been thriving financially during COVID or they've been battling financially, whatever the situation is, everybody's tired. And I've finished each of those sessions with, like you say, it's such a cheesy message, but I genuinely believe it. And that is that the best is yet to come. And that we live in the hope that the best is yet to come. You might be too young to remember this song, but Ish, you'll remember this song. Things can only get better. That used to be an anthem for me. Whenever some dropkick boyfriend had dumped me again, I'd just put that song. Yeah, I'd spend like 4 days listening to REM, Everybody Hurts, and then I'd go, okay, I've had enough of this. And so then I'd change the record and put that one on. And, yeah.
Everybody
it's true,
hurts.
Right? It's true.
Compared to
Yes,
that
the
one.
eclectic soundtrack of Sasha's life. It's always... Hey, so Arthur, what's kind of next for you? Like, what's your thing that you've got going on at the moment?
So when my mom was in hospital, I knew the race was coming and she was still there, and I thought it would be beautiful to like film it and document it, so it will get strength and inspiration to other people. A month before the race, I got in touch with someone that I know who knew someone else that is a filmmaker, and I was like, would you be able to like film my trainings and come to me to the venue and film me there and make a little documentary about it? And then he said, yeah, we will do that. With a great connection. The idea was just to make a very short film, like of 3 minutes, and with my own money, like a small budget, because making films is very expensive. Like it's not only filming it, but like editing it and then putting sound over that, which you need to pay as well, and then coloring it and all like lots of things if you want to do it right also. And then after all, we found out that the budget ran out, and that's why I started a crowdfund now. But the main reason for doing that film is that why we're doing this and why you guys are doing the podcast. It's you want to, what I've learned, it would be a shame if that would stay with me. It would be even better if I could like throw it into the air like a rocket with like New Year, and like it will fizzle around the world, and even if like only 10 people or anyone will get some inspiration of it. I think that's, for me, it felt really like something I had to do. Like I thought it would be a shame if only me and my small group of friends would know this story and would know the strength. And actually, my friends are the best people ever, and they really adore me, and I adore them. But for them, it's also like, oh yeah, it's Arthur who's crazy and always talking about his Iron Man. And so I thought it would be nice to share it, and I felt I had to.
That's great. So the crowdfunding, how do people donate to that?
So there's a website called, I made a link.
Listen up, people. This is the pitch. Here we go. Get a pen. Write this down.
Yeah, it's bit.ly, like Greek I, like bit.ly/road to Ironman. If you go to that website, you will find, first of all, the short movie that we had, like the promo movie. It's also on my Instagram, Arthur Gerards. It will show you a little bit how it will look like and what's going to be. We need to film more. We're going to do like a voiceover, like a whole like an interview. It will be very nice. And I just hope that a lot of people find inspiration of it and find strength. And what you say is also quite nice, that it's not a race, like who's grieving the best. Or this is also not a story about grief. It's a story about just any hard time. Even in a lockdown, you can feel bad. And I hope it gives anyone like motivation. And also, it's not necessary that it only works with a triathlon, because that friend of mine that I spoke to yesterday with, she does like this she just puts on music and she closes her eyes and she just starts moving and dancing. And her mom passed away when she was 13, so that's like 20 years ago now. And now when she's doing that, she gets so in touch with herself and also with her mother, because every human being is a product of two human beings. Whenever, like with me also, like I'm half my mother, which also, yeah, I don't have to say really goodbye to her because I am her, and she's always with me in spirit, of course. And yeah, I also said at the funeral, like I didn't said the words loss or goodbye, or it's also the strange thing that we have in this modern society that a funeral nowadays is such a strange event. And my mission was to make it, if a stranger would walk in, they would feel immediately who she was and how she was. And I said to the people, like, if you keep thinking of her, you keep her in your life and you keep listening to her, what she always said, you will never have to say goodbye to her. Another thing I learned is, and that sounds really strange to see it with such a situation, but like, look at what you do have and don't look to what you don't have. And I look to the most beautiful friendship I had with my mother. Last year we went to like disco parties and museums and things she never did in her life. And I took her to Amsterdam and showed her life. And there are people that they are 50 and they never did that with their parents. And that's something to be grateful of. Also in lockdown, look at what you do have. Don't look at the restrictions. Look at the possibilities that are in front of you. And there are thousands.
Yeah, and I'm gonna share this with my kids, because when they open their Christmas presents on Christmas Day, it's just gonna have a little card that says, "As your gift this year, I have contributed to Arthur's movie." and then I'm going to just teach them about being grateful for what they do have, and that they shouldn't complain about the gifts they thought they were getting, because instead you're going to get a movie made about you. I hope they understand.
They're quite grown up already, like 15 or 20.
Yeah, no, they're not that mature. They won't
phones.
handle that well.
They want phones and cars.
Yeah, pretty much.
There you go. Who is this Arthur?
Well, the other thing that if New Zealand listeners will know, I think it might be spelt differently to your surname, but if you're going to like Google around to try and find Arthur to contribute, we used to have a roofing company in New Zealand that had an ad, and the ad went, "Go for Gerard. Go for Gerard and your roof is looking good." Do you remember that?
I do remember that.
Yeah. So that'll help people remember to find you and give you money.
Yeah, and I'll put the link in the show notes as well so that people can click straight in.
Yeah. You have funny commercials, by the way, in New Zealand, because I listen to George FM, which is from Auckland sometimes. Those commercials are hideous. Sometimes. It's still like, do you want to get a new rooftop? Then call us.
It's the best we've got, man.
We've got waterfalls and mountains. Leave us alone.
Leave us alone.
Hey, Arthur, it has been great talking to you on the podcast. I find you inspirational, and I just know you're going to go on to just put that inspiration out into the world. And good on you for taking stuff that is hard and turning it into stuff that is amazing, and then wanting to communicate that message. So again, I'll put the links in the show notes. You can follow Arthur on his Instagram page. You can donate to his crowd fund, and you can watch his movie when it comes out.
And the funny thing is that I do incentives as well to the crowdfund, so you can pay like 30, that's euros, but I'm not sure how to convert that in NZ dollars, but you can.
It's about 300 New Zealand dollars, 30 euros.
It's not. No, but like it starts with, you can join me with an online magic show. So that's a gift you can give for Christmas, or like a masterclass, or be in the movie titles, or I write a whole personal coaching plan for you to work out, or like anything. So it's not just giving money. I give, of course, the movie back, but I like to give more back and share the magic of life.
How much for the naming rights? How much do I have to pay for you to call it Sasha's Journey to Iron Man?
and then put your face like on my face the whole journey.
Yeah, please. Yeah. As I'm biking.
Yeah.
Everyone watching go, this is bullshit. Sasha.
She's too lazy to do that. Have you seen her?
Yeah. Hey, a little bit less laughter, please, James. I've loved having you on the show, Arthur. Thank you for sharing with us. It's amazing. And, I will always look back so fondly at the conversations that we've already shared, the two of us. And I hope that we have many more moments in our lives where we catch up all over the world on this planet and keep doing amazing things. So thank you.